This time it was so much faster, so much more painful that I actually at one point thought I was going to die. In that moment, I finally was brought low enough and stripped away of everything that it's like, no, like you really need this to be your lifestyle. I mean, you hear people talk about it, you see it on paper, you see it in videos, but I finally like subscribed myself officially in this moment to this idea. You need to live this way because your family deserves it, because it's the higher way to live. You need to do it because it's the right thing to do.
You're listening to the Reed Fletcher podcast. I am very excited about this guest. Jake Bennington is a senior manager of sales at Aptive Environmental. He's got a great story, perfectly embodies living to your edge. I don't want to spoil his story, but he goes into his battle with Chrons disease and his mindset about consistency over intensity, and it's just an awesome outlook on life, and I hope you enjoy. Jake Bennington, thanks for jumping on the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
One thing, changing the subject, that I've seen you doing that I think is really awesome is that Murph month. That's crazy, man. How did you get onto that crazy kick of like, let me just demolish my day every day? I think it's awesome.
Demolish or establish, right? Perspective. So
I guess a little bit of both.
I can promise you it was the latter. It's what established my day every day and set the tone for my day, and kept me bound to something. So, I mean, I'll explain it really quick. So, because a lot of people actually don't really know what the Murph Challenge is, but if you've seen Lone Survivor, and that's the movie with Mark Wahlberg where he's playing Marcus Luttrell, and there's a military operation, in the Middle East, and they all die except for the lone survivor. I mean, spoiler, sorry guys, but I mean, come on, like read into the title. Hopefully I wasn't too much of a spoiler.
I think it's in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like you understand from the trailer, like, okay, all these dudes are gonna die. It's gonna be real sad. Marcus actually came and spoke to us at Aptive, and that was an incredible experience. Anyway, so
I came and watched it. He was awesome.
Oh yeah, you were there for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very unconventional from like a speaker. You could tell he like wasn't a speaker, so he was very authentic though.
Yeah. I really liked it.
I really very raw, very authentic, very genuine.
It felt like talking with like a friend or an uncle. He like was just like, yeah, like this is just the way it is, and like it didn't seem rehearsed, which I like loved, honestly. Like I really connected with it because it felt like a real guy.
Yeah, it was the same thing with Alex Honnold. That was 2 kickoffs ago, so about 2 years ago. Alex Honnold, who climbed El Capitan with no rope. He came and spoke to us, and he's a weird guy. He's kind of strange socially. His social cues are all over, and he was like the most endearing person we've ever had come speak to us because he was so authentic. He couldn't even help himself. But anyways, there's someone that died on that mission that is dedicated to
Sorry, you cut off. Sorry, I missed it. Can you repeat that?
You're good. Yeah. So there's a challenge, a physical challenge that is dedicated to Lieutenant Murphy, who died in that mission. And you run a mile, you do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 bodyweight squats, and then you run another mile after, and you do all that with a 20-pound weight vest. And people typically do it like once a year, like Memorial Day, Veterans Day, things like that. And I had messed with it a little bit over the summer down in Texas and borrowed a weight vest, and it's tough. Like it's tough. But I liked the tough. And then, the whole reason I wanted to do it was 2020 has been a year of, it's just been completely unprecedented in so many ways. And it's a year of renewed division. Unfortunately, this isn't a division that is new, it's just renewed. And, politics has never been more toxic, at least, in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And you have the pandemic and people are completely pulled apart, which only exacerbates the division. No one's connecting in person and having these conversations at arm's length, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all virtual. And everyone was complaining, right? We got into this very comfortable pattern of complaining about, and that was like the only unity that we had, right? Was actually complaining about how everything really sucked in 2020. It's like, what's next? Kobe, are you serious? And then, what and then these killer hornet things from Japan. It's like, oh my gosh, like if you're even a little bit religious, you got to think Jesus is coming down any second, right? And
Oh
so
yeah.
we're unified in the complaint, and it to me was fine for a little bit, but after a while, when it was the mantra of 2020, I'm like, all right, like I can't indulge this conversation anymore. It's not conducive to me and my progress. It's weighing me down, and so I felt everyone coming to a slow at the end of 2020 and grinding to a halt, and just like barely being able to crawl to the end of 2020, and somehow thinking January 1st, 2021, 2020 is behind us. So now everything is a clean slate.
Mm-hmm.
Division will be done. We'll have a new president and all this other stuff, and pandemic and whatever. And now all our problems are going to be solved. And that's obviously setting yourself up for a really, really difficult time. So for me, I wanted to try and have momentum going into the new year, because we say January 1st, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to eat right.
Mm-hmm.
Going to do this, this, this. And we just decided, because it feels nice and neat, January 1st, new year, this is when I'm going to take my life serious and do the things. I've time stamped it.
Mm-hmm.
I've time stamped the things that are best for me and put them out in the future, an arbitrary date. And so you go from 0 to 100. You weren't doing those things at all before, and you even like crawled to the end of 2020. So it's literally 0, and
Mm-hmm.
you're like, I'm gonna go 100 miles an hour out of nowhere, right? And I knew that I wanted to have momentum going into the new year. I wanted to like blast into 2021 already really trying to apply myself, really doing hard things, embracing challenge. And so I was, sharp between my ears, and I could just, take off and have a really good 2021. I feel like it starts before, January 1st. Anyway, so that's the concept that led me to want to do something very hard. And I got all my some of my sales reps and managers, family, their friends, and we had like 40 something people involved at one point to do the Murph challenge every day of December,
Mm-hmm.
except Sundays. Have a day of rest there, but every single day, including Christmas and New Year's and New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve. So that's what we did for December, and it was fantastic.
Dude, I love that. And especially December, like of all the months you could have chosen, it's like you said it exactly right. Like that's the month where most people are just like, okay, I'm resting so that I can go so hard in January. Um, so you did on Christmas, New Year's Eve, all that.
Mhm. So what I was getting ready on, the only one that I didn't do it like on the day of like a holiday was Christmas Day. I was getting ready. I was going to go do it. I had all my family in town from Texas, Ohio, everywhere. And for my brother's wedding, he was getting married on like 3 days later, 2 days
Mm-hmm.
later. So that was tough. Like everyone was there for the first time, at my house, and I had to leave everyone to go do it, which was part of the challenge, right?
Right, sure.
But I ended up just saying, you know what, I'm going to not go today, and I'll do 2 back to back tomorrow. And so I feel like that was an equivalent, that was a good sacrifice. So I did enjoy Christmas Day at home with everyone, but then the following day I got up and then did 2 back to back,
You
which
did 2 back to back.
I
Dang.
would recommend. I wouldn't recommend that, at all. It was
Yeah.
awful. It was absolutely awful.
How was your body adjusting? So I did something uh last November, not just now, but like a year and whatever ago, where I
Mm.
was trying to do like a push-up challenge just because I was stuck at home. I couldn't go to the gym because I had so much homework
Mm.
my last semester of college. And so I was just like, I got to do something to push my mind So I did this push-up challenge, and you surprise yourself with how fast you adjust to stuff like that. Like, it's hard, but like with the Murph challenge, like what did you notice? Like probably like a curve in the beginning, and then when did it get easier?
Yeah, a lot of people have actually asked something along those lines, and that's awesome. You did that push-up challenge. It's very hard to work out like in your living room. It's very difficult. So that took a lot of determination from you to be able to do that. It reminds me of the story of the guy who was a hardcore video gamer. He was addicted, and he started to feel like, man, I'm wasting my life away. He's like, okay, at least between games, if you hear about this guy, between my games loading, when I'm in like the lobby waiting for a new game, I'm gonna do push-ups that whole time. And after like 2 months, he actually got shredded, lost like 30 pounds, all this kind of stuff just from doing that. And he went to a gym finally, and he could bench press 250 pounds. It's like, I mean, there's so many, and that's the whole consistency over intensity thing that I love. But if you just use the time that you have, it can be little moments. That's okay. It doesn't always need to be this Herculean effort that you put in every day. It's the culmination of these little things that lead you where you want to go. Anyways, that was just a side note. Made me think about. But everyone has a lot of challenges with the murph in a certain areas. The number one area is the pull-ups. Everyone struggles with pull-ups. That's everyone's Achilles heel. And then you add on a 20-pound weight vest, and then people really struggle, right?
How many is it again?
How many pull-ups?
Yeah.
100. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a very typical thing for people to consistently do pull-ups in their workout. And so everyone has a rough time with it. And then depending on kind of how you work out, the runs, those can be hard for people too. But the squats and the push-ups, they're bad, but they're not the worst parts of it. So just between myself and the people I would do the murph with every day, shout out to those people. We all saw a huge jump in the pull-ups, where it was disheartening for a lot of people in the first 5, 6, 7 days, when they feel like this pull-ups is a joke. Like, it takes me an hour and a half just to do that part.
Yeah.
I see no light at the end of the tunnel. Like, this is never going to get better. And the people who stayed with it and pushed past leaped ahead on the pull-ups. And before you knew it, halfway through the month, it was so difficult, but they could do 2, 3 times the pull-ups they were doing. And they never would have thought that. So your body adjusts. There's something that happens on a psychological level where you say, look, I'm committed to this. If it takes me 5 hours, that sucks, but I'm going to do it. And I'm committed to it in my heart of hearts, right? Mm-hmm. I'm never going to renegotiate this. I'm doing it, whatever it takes. I'd rather it be not as hard, but I'm going to do it. And then your body will doubt you for a while. Your body will challenge you on it for a while, right? Obviously, because it can't even handle it physically, but also we have Goggins talks about the voice in your head. It wants to protect you, right? And so we have this instinct to survive, and our mind's going to say, hey, I don't think we can do that. Hey, that really sucks. Hey, that's hard. Don't do that thing. And it'll try and talk you out of it. But after the first 5, 6, 7 days, your body, your mind, they align. Finally, it says, all right, it looks like you're not giving up on this one. I believe you now. I will support you and align with you, right? And then the voice kind of goes away. And it's not easy, but it's easier. And now, you can keep going. So a lot of it's just overcoming the hump, and your body will acclimate, kind of like you saw too.
Yeah, I love what you said about the voice. It's funny. I've heard it said in this way where it's like, I've heard people say the universe, or a voice. And I was listening to Grant Cardone the other day. He said, the universe is just waiting for you to show that you're serious about something, and then it'll stop trying to stop you. And like, that's the same kind of thing. Like that voice in your head is like, hey, we've never done this before. We could be embarrassed. We could get hurt. I don't know why are you going out on this limb? Like, we were so comfortable inside watching Tiger King, and now it's Christmas Eve. Why are we out here running? And then when you actually do it, it like silences that voice because there's new evidence in your life that you can. So the voice, you don't really need it because it's protecting you, but now you're like, hey, look, I'm fine. I got out there, I did it, I didn't die. It hurt, but like I'm the same guy I was. And then the next time the voice is that much weaker. And it's just like you just keep fighting against it.
Yeah, we underestimate, that's well said. We underestimate our ability to change the dialogue of the voice. We feel like the voice is so stubborn. And if we just out stubborn it, then it will change like that because, okay, I'm going to go run on the treadmill. And leading up to it, if I'm not really committed in my heart, it's like my that voice smells blood in the water. And it's like, I sense a little bit of you doesn't want to do this. I'm gonna like go hard in that little corner and try and build it to the point where I talk myself out of going on the treadmill. So you can have no blood in the water with your commitment. You're gonna
Mm-hmm.
do it and you're gonna do it, or you're just not gonna, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get in the habit of making so many commitments that are we half mean them, and our mind knows we can't even trust ourselves, and it will exploit it and self-sabotage all day. And
Mm-hmm.
so I made it onto the treadmill now I'm running the voice the whole time. If I'm committed to a 10-mile run, it's going to have a threshold that's going to say, all right, I'm going to talk against you for probably around half of this, 5 miles. Hey, stop running. Hey, this sucks. Whoa, you're tired. Maybe better a different day, right? Oh, you didn't get enough sleep last night. Oh my gosh, you're bored. You forgot your headphones. That sucks. you know? And then
Yeah.
eventually it's like, shut up, I'm doing this thing, okay? And the voice is like, you sure? Well, okay. And then it backs off. And
Mm-hmm.
then you finish, you hop off the treadmill, and now the voice is an advocate for you. It's fickle in that way, right? It's stubborn this way, and it'll be stubborn the other way. So you come off the treadmill, how do you feel? You feel incredible. You feel proud, right? And once you've caught your breath, you feel physically good, right? Your blood's
Mm-hmm.
flowing, you have a clear mind, you feel like you're on top of your day, you're tilted towards success the whole rest of the day, right? And so now that voice has become an advocate. And it's like, yeah, you're right. Hey, you were right about that. I feel good. Like, this is cool. This is good. I'm glad we did this. And suddenly, it's in your behalf anyways.
Ironically, I think it becomes so much easier when you have that commitment in your mind. Like, perfect example is summer sales. Like, I remember knocking, and I had to be like so strict about certain things with myself. It was like like the time I would go home at night, like whatever, like 8 o'clock or 8:30 or something. Like, it doesn't matter the scenario. I'm not gonna leave until 8:30. And a lot of times it's actually almost irrational, like because there's probably situations where it's dark at 8:15, and those last 15 minutes, honestly, I'm probably not going to get anything, or whatever. There's certain reasons why maybe you could recalibrate that logic, but the the voice in your head will literally take any, like you said, blood in the water and exploit it as much as possible. And so it's like, you know what? Like, I should I should hang out in the car for a little bit longer after lunch, um, because I will be in a better mood if I listen to another good song
Mhm.
and rest a little bit. And if I'm in a better mood, then when I knock on these doors, these people, they're gonna like me so much more. I'm gonna do better in sales. So I'll listen to one more song. And it's like that, it's so hard to knock. Um, and it's so, you need so much just like will to do that job, that that voice is like 10 times stronger. And anytime it has a chance to show up, it's going to run with anything you have. Like, if it's more rest, if it's more songs, if it's a longer lunch, if it's sleeping in, like whatever, it's like it's starving, because you're out there working every day, and it's like, please, we need, feed us, take a break. um and when you really, really, really decide, and you're not making that decision every day, at some point it actually becomes very easy, because you don't have that internal battle every single morning. Am I going to go out? Am I going to stay in? Like, once you're so committed that the voice goes away, then it's like brushing your teeth. Like, I don't ask myself every single day if I'm going to brush my teeth. I just That's just what I do. And then that's the point where you're just going, and it's not even hard, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That was all excellent, excellent stuff. Decision fatigue is very, very real. It's very real, and there's a book called The Happiness Advantage, and it talks about a study that they did where they have three groups. Well, only two groups are, matter at all. And one group is the person sits at a table in a room and they put a plate on the table that has like cookies or something like that. And they say, you cannot have any of these, straight up. And then they walk out and leave them there to just sit and look at these cookies, right? Then the second group, they say, you can, have as many as you want, eat as many of these cookies or whatever it was, and no issue. And then what they found was the people who were told no were they were using their mental energy, their willpower, to say no constantly the whole time, right? They're right there and they're saying, oh, but I want one. Oh, this is a study. Like, I know this is psychological. Like, I still want a cookie. I'm going to take a cookie and they'll deduce whatever they want on their end. I don't care. Like, give me this cookie, Whatever reasoning, they're constantly in this internal battle about this cookie. And so willpower is a resource. It's not a characteristic. It's not a characteristic. And so people have that all wrong where they think, oh, it's just, I have really strong will. No, you just have a lot of willpower in a daily basis, right? It's kind of like if I work out, if I go swim every day, my lung capacity is going to grow, grow, grow. I'm going to hold my breath longer than you. And so if I do a lot of things like that to exercise my willpower, my capacity for willpower is going to be greater for you in a single day. But we each have a tank that eventually runs empty and it's renewed every day. And so these people are spending their willpower. The group two wasn't, not at all. They can have a cookie. I don't want any more, they're just going to chill. So then this is the interesting part. Then they took them into a room together and said, hey, we're going to do some puzzles. And they handed everyone like a little quiz that was like puzzles and some math problems and some like random mind game things like that. What you would think is that that is completely unrelated, right, to what happened in the other room. They have nothing to do with each other. Mm-hmm. But what they found is the people who are spending more willpower in that first room performed 30% worse than the other group. So your actual resource of willpower and using mental energy is actually transferable to other things in your life that you think are not connected. So where do you go from there, right? You say, okay, well, for dieting, I have a ton of will. This is how people traditionally think. I have a lot of self-control with dieting. I eat really, really healthy. Oh, going running? No, I can't. It's not in the cards for me. I don't like running. I don't do that, right? And then the person who says that second thing, oh, I can't run. That's so not what I'm about. They're going to end up trickling that into other things when they're like, oh, should I go running? Should I not? Maybe I'll go. You know what? I'm going to go run. Tell you what, I'm going to go run. I'm going to run 3 miles. But then the voice is working on them the whole time on the treadmill. And eventually they talk themselves down to 1.5 miles about, you know what? I can feel really good for all of these reasons that I did 1.5 miles. I'm actually going to renegotiate the 3 and I'm going to get off and I'm at a place where I've rationalized it good enough. I'm getting off. I feel good. But that back and forth battle, the whole treadmill, the internet, there you are. The back and forth battle on the treadmill was sapping that resource. So now they're going to go into the other aspects of their life and rinse and repeat that same struggle. Mm-hmm. And they're going to underperform. Their performance will be affected in the other equities of their life and what they have to do on a daily basis. So anyways, the whole point, I was long-winded, sorry. The whole point is to make a decision or don't. But if you're going to do it, be committed in your heart of hearts. You cannot renegotiate because it will affect other things in your life that have seemed completely unrelated.
I've found I like the term renegotiate because it does feel like that, like a negotiation with yourself. And it like wears you out, it's like to be constantly determining the level of effort and the level of importance during the thing. That's why, as kids, they had us say, we will never do drugs. and so that we wouldn't have to make the decision in the moment. Didn't work. A lot of us still became potheads, but it's the right idea, right? I like
Fair.
the thought of, there's a quote. I think it's Tom Billio. I don't know if you ever have listened to him, Impact Theory, anything like that.
Uh,
Um,
Little. I know what you're referring to, but I'm familiar.
I'm gonna butcher the quote, but it's something along the lines of like, rather than saying, what's the least that you can do to get some kind of result, you should think, what's the most that you can bear. Um, and when you're like, he would go to the gym and he would think like, oh, is this enough? Have I done enough for this to be worth the drive over here every day? And that was, again, that constant battle, right? Like, my muscles are kind of sore. That's what I came here for. But then you start to negotiate. If I went home a little bit earlier, the amount of pleasure I would get by sitting in my house versus that same amount of effort it would take at the gym. And it's just like, it gets in your head, right?
Right.
Um, but if you start thinking, what's the most I can bear in pursuit of my goal, then it completely flips on its head. It's like, can I do this more? You know, can I be at the gym? Can I be more intense and have it still be benefiting me? Can I stay longer? Can I work longer hours, or can I work better hours, or whatever it is? It's not always just about beating yourself up, but it's, what is the limit I can push rather than what is the least I can do and still get that result. And it really changes the way you think about it.
What you just said, in my opinion, is the secret to enduring deep happiness on this earth, because progress equals happiness. If you are not progressing, then you're only experiencing temporary hits of that dopamine. You're at a party, you're with friends, you're doing something social, whatever. It's very temporary moments, flashes of happiness. But the ocean of happiness, the meaningful version, comes through progress. And it's
Mm-hmm.
unique. You can't get that happiness any other way. We are happiest when we are applying ourselves, when we're pushing ourselves, when we're expanding ourselves. And that all entails friction. Progress is friction, right? Meaning it's difficult. Progress shouldn't happen naturally, it shouldn't happen, you fall into progress. There's an effort that you're actually putting forth, right? So friction is something that we should pursue. And I'm not saying to constantly be destroying yourself. Trust me, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, you know what your thresholds are, you know what your limits are. And I have a unique opinion about this, I think. Some people will say, oh, I give my 100% every day. Or, it's all about this 100% effort. We talk about that all the time. 100%, 100%, 110%, and I like the vibe and energy from that, but I think it's a misleading concept because, in my opinion, my 100% changes daily. That's my opinion. So, okay, I'll give you an example. Literally, last night, my daughter named Harper, for whatever reason, decided, you know what, I'm having a really tough time sleeping. She wakes up crying, and I have to spend, almost an hour in her room with her in the middle of the night. Throws off REM cycle, all this kind of stuff. I wake up then, at 7 to go work out, and I'm in a very different energy place than I was, on a different day with a full night rest. And some people will say, well, no excuses. I'm going to show up 100% of like this non-moving baseline of what 100% is. It's this, or it's always going to be something below this.
Yeah.
And while I respect people holding themselves to a standard, I think that can be damaging when it's all said and done, because you need to acknowledge the challenges of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And say, well, today my 100% looks like this. It resets every day, in my opinion. Now you have a general idea of where your average baseline is, and then you look at, okay, today, considering this and this and this, like, where's my average? Like, really, what's my 100% look like today?
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you strive to show up and show out for that, then you're going to be in a really good spot. You're always going to be progressing. You're always going to be applying yourself, and you're not going to just beat yourself up because because today for me didn't look like last Wednesday, Thursday, when I had a great night of sleep, really hydrated, and I just got after it at the gym like I never have. That's my 100%. Like, I know what that looks like. So if it's not that, then it's not me giving everything I have. It's like, that's not actually a constructive way to go about that. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? And so
Yeah.
it just falls back on living life to your edge, which comes from a book, The Way of the Superior Man.
Read
He
it.
talks about, you've read that? It's excellent, right? It's
Yeah.
incredible. And there's he comes back to it several times, but what is your edge? What is your edge? As long as you are living your personal edge, then you are doing. I'll give you an example. Okay, so David Goggins, he's an ultra marathoner. This dude will run 100, 200, 300 miles in races, right? And so it's very objectively impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if David Goggins goes out today and goes on a 10-mile jog right back here, is that impressive for David Goggins?
That's his warm up, barely.
He accidentally does that. But yeah, it's like he subconsciously accidentally went out and ran 10 miles. Like, it's not impressive at all, because that his edge in that specific avenue running, his edge is way over here, right? So for you to be impressed with his effort, he needs to be doing like 200 miles. Then you're like, dang, that's David getting after it. Wow, way to go, David. Oh, you did 10 miles? I don't even care that you did 10 miles.
Why are you telling me?
Because I know. Yeah, why are you even telling? It's irrelevant. Because his capacity. Now, if you take someone who is morbidly obese or has like really hard knee issues or whatever and hasn't run 5 miles ever in their life, and then they go out, give it everything they have and run 5 miles, what is more impressive? David Goggins' 10 miles or that person's 5 miles?
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with distance at all. It has everything to do with effort. Who was living at where their edge is?
Mm-hmm.
And the person who 5 miles was right there. They're capping out, right? And that is way more respectable, admirable, something to write home about instead of David doing 10.
Yeah.
So it's we get caught up in the wrong metrics, I think.
Absolutely, and there's a really good feeling that comes from. That's why it's an edge, right? It's where two things meet, and a lot of people I feel like think. You mentioned intensity is not as important as consistency, right? A lot of people think, oh, I want something, I want to be successful, so I need the intensity. So they jump over the edge and they think, I'm going to go out today and I'm going to run 50 miles, and they've never run before. And again, on the one hand, I really do like the energy. I do like the idea. I like the thought of like, let me push myself way past what I've ever done. There's a reason why it's an edge, 1 foot on each side, maybe, to where you're constantly pushing the edge. But if you're afraid of something, if you're afraid of public speaking, you probably shouldn't, speak at your graduation, your first ever public speaking. The edge is like, a lot of people get
there.
Yeah, a lot of people get discouraged by this thought because they're afraid of something and they think, I just have to get so much courage to where I can just take that leap. I can jump in with both feet. I'm just going to go do a triathlon. I'm going to go ask that girl out. I'm going to, whatever it is. And then I will be fearless, and then I will have conquered it. But like, no, just like talk to the girl in one of your classes. Don't ask her out. If that's your edge, like, then maybe the next day push it a little bit. But it's like you were saying, it's the accumulation of these micro improvements that are compounding over time, that you wake up one day and you're like, I'm not as afraid of that as I used to be. It's not the Herculean, like, the guy who shows up and bench presses as hard as he can and is sore for 3 weeks, so it doesn't work out for 3 weeks. Like, you really think that guy is going to be stronger than the guy who's there every day, works his way up, and still is intense? But it's a funny trade-off that you don't really have to make. Like it's not like either I'll get my dreams or like I'll just sit around and do nothing. Like either I'll get my dreams today, that's what I'm gonna say. Either I'll get my dreams today or I'll do nothing. It's like do something. Drink some water. See the lowest bar and grab that and then come back and we'll talk tomorrow.
Amen. That is my entire message always. You that was beautiful. That is what I talk about. That's what I try and share. That's what I try and be about, because that's my story. Getting diagnosed with Crohn's disease and not having any other option. I didn't have an option to be intense. That wasn't on the table at all. And I think what's really interesting about what you said is sometimes we think by the intensity of a goal, that somehow the universe, like the goal is so powerful and intense that it's gonna pull us up to it. you know does that make sense? I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
like putting words to that. And so,
Yeah.
and then we think, well, let me go all in on this goal. And so what are the ways can I like commit to it? Well, I'm going to hit the gym. So I'm going to get a really expensive gym pass. I'm going to get all new gym clothes. I'm going to get all this different stuff, pump all this money into it, because it's the same thing. It's like I put all this money into it. How is that not going to like its force pull me to doing it? But if that was true, then you wouldn't be in that situation in the first place. It's not. It's all between the ears. It's a behavioral thing that is getting shortchanged there. And so people, there's a good concept here that is overplayed, though. You have to be careful with it, and that's it is a lot easier to act yourself into a new way of thinking versus thinking yourself into a new way of acting. So that's true, right? But then, and hopefully that makes sense. It's like,
Yeah.
if people want to say like, oh, why don't I eat well? Oh, why don't I work out? Oh, why don't I read more? Oh, what? And they just want to like fix it here first. Like, if I can just get committed, man, if I can just get motivated, if I can like get my head straight, wrap my head around this, get in a good mind place, then I can, go and the actions will follow. That's not the formula. You need to just start doing stuff. Just start doing things, putting actions out there, and naturally your mindset and the way you think will change, which will lead to your life. But what you just said is someone stepping too far, and they're going to say, well, I'm going to like take a bet on a massive goal that I'm not even remotely close to, and put all my eggs in that basket and hope that the force of the goal pulls me to it. And then they sabotage themselves, right? So what you said about is the guy who goes and like goes so hard in the gym January 1st that he's so sore he can't move for 2-3 weeks and doesn't see the gym for the rest of the month, versus the person who comes in and says, all right, where's my edge at? Let me be smart. I'm going to work out here. I'm going to do just a little bit. And eventually they get to a good place. So that's very well said, man. That's what I talk about all the time, and that was awesome to hear.
I think too many people they misunderstand this, including me. They misunderstand how hard it is to show up and do something small again and again and again and again and again. And when you have the perfect balance of intensity and consistency, by the way, I think literally like the definition of intensity um, means you can't do it every day, right? Like if your most intense effort possible, I remember hearing this somewhere, I can't remember now. But it was like, if you like, it was about wrestling. I was listening to a podcast or something about wrestling. And they were saying like, if you go as hard, like to exhaustion every day with wrestling, like to complete muscle exhaustion. Same with powerlifting.
Like you collapse.
Yeah, if you collapse to failure every day in powerlifting, um, by definition, you can't go that intense the next day, right? Like you can't PR your deadlift every day, right? I think most people know that. And so like, I don't know the exact perfect balance, but there is something to be said for, like, there is a right amount of intensity um, that matches perfect consistency. Because you also don't, I mean, don't lean too far the other way to where you're like, oh yeah, I just like show up and dilly dally. But it's interesting to think about, like, what's the perfect, what's the perfect amount that you can push yourself that you can come back tomorrow and push yourself that hard again.
That is so interesting, and I love that idea. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna study that one out. Because that's an iteration of, like, what I think about all the time that I haven't thought about. So that's awesome. Um, yeah, the intensity should be your edge, not, like, whatever the edge is, that should reset daily,
Mhm.
right? So, if you can be intense and you PR one day, well, then the next day you can't PR. Your edge is in a different place. So just meet that edge, and you're still fine, right?
Mhm.
But it's when we compare. This is why people who don't like going to the gym stay out of it, and they get really discouraged. It's because they compare other people's edges to their own,
Mhm.
right? They go to the gym and they look around, and more often than not, at a gym, you see people who have already been going there a long time. They're in decent shape or really good shape, doing tons of weight or running real fast. Like, they are in a different polarized place than maybe where you're coming from. And so, instead of what is logical and saying, here's a strength to a strength, that's the comparison I'm going to make, or my weakness to a weakness, there's a comparison I'm going to make. What we always do as humans is we take our weakness and compare it to someone's strength. And that's illogical. It's their strength, it's your weakness. Why are you putting them on the same level? You know what I mean? And so that's what happens at the gym is you look around at everyone, you see everyone's edge in real time. Well, like a perception of their edge. You don't really know,
Mhm.
but you kind of tell the people who are striving for it, the people who are resting between sets, and it's probably safe to say that the person who's on their phone for like 20 minutes sitting there is probably not at their edge in that moment, you know, and that's the only thing you should care about, right? Where's the evidence of effort, and so as long as your intensity is aligned with your daily edge, then you're going to be okay, and that's how you can kind of balance them both, I think.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. We're talking about like the nature of consciousness, right? Like between people. And like you always see things from your own perspective, obviously. And so like you see all things, and the problem with that is how biased it is in relation to what other people mean objectively. So for example, like you go into the gym, you were talking about your own edge, and all of a sudden, like the world only matters in how you interpret it when it comes to what things mean. So like I see that girl who's squatting more than me, and I think, well, she's just naturally stronger, or that guy, he's just naturally faster. And not only that, he's smarter, he's probably cooler, he probably knows that I used to wet the bed in 5th grade. And like your consciousness fills in all these, like, totally, like you said, illogical conclusions. Because I mean, you have nothing else besides your own perception of everything, right? And what he said to me, which is like, I don't even really like know where to start with this, but he was saying, like, how do I explain this? Basically, like, imagine um, that we had a shared consciousness, which unfortunately we don't.
We're not there yet.
We're working. Elon Musk will get us there.
Elon will get it. Yeah.
Imagine if you had, if someone could see into your perspective, um, like you did wrestling, right? You did
Yeah.
wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, I bet you'd have no idea of all the people that saw you and gave a very biased view of all the other stuff you were good at and secure about because you were good at wrestling. If you both could see each other's perspective for that moment and we had a collective, you'd be able to say, like, they could see, oh my goodness, like, look at all these other insecurities, look at all these things that he doesn't do well, or look at how hard he has to work for the things he does have, or whatever, and vice versa. It'd be so interesting to see that, like, people are, I mean, for the most part, I believe people are basically equal. Equal is a hard word to use nowadays, but like, if you like weigh out all the things that people do, like, you find something that someone is better at. You just judging each other on these weird currencies. If you could both see from each other's eyes, you'd be like, well, actually, we're about the same. He's good at wrestling. I'm good at drawing, or whatever. And like, you wouldn't have the whole judging and all that stuff. Obviously, that's not going to happen because Elon Musk hasn't invented it yet. But when it does,
When it does, I hope that yeah, we can see through each other's eyes first. I'll put in the request. That's really interesting. It's like a good way to step into talking about that, like, to conceptualize it is like a shared consciousness. That's a
it
cool way.
went. I mean, I'm like spitballing. It went over my head. He was telling me about like psychedelics and how that happens, where like you feel like you're connected in consciousness, and I'm kind of like that's awesome, but like I haven't done that. Um, and so I'm probably saying it like totally wrong. Hopefully he doesn't listen to this. But it is interesting to think about.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Yeah, it's we are so quick to discount ourselves and give other people the upside always, you
Hmm.
know. And it's one of the core flaws, I think, of human nature that, movies and social media and music and everything only make worse, clearly, because they give you constant access to be able to make these comparisons. But
Hmm.
being able to understand that I have, like, look, I comparisons actually are important. You need to be able to compare for a lot of reasons, but you need to compare on a level playing field. That's why I say, if you're going to compare, what you should do sparingly and in the right context, it should be a strength to a strength, a weakness to a weakness. Comparing your weakness to someone's crazy strength only shoves you farther down
Hmm.
every single time. Whether that's going to ever motivate you, or are you ever actually going to learn anything from that? No. And so, if you're going to compare, be on a level playing field is what I try and tell people, because in certain ways it can be helpful, right? To understand, like, oh, okay, we're in the same radius. Like, what's the competitive edge you have, like in business, right?
Hmm.
Anyways, that's like a side tangent that I think about sometimes.
It's funny when you go to the gym, using the same example. I remember the first time I went to the gym after my mission, and I lost like 35 pounds. I lost, and I was insecure about it. Right? Like, my calves were tiny, and I went in there, and I remember thinking, um, doing a lift, and then like there's someone behind me that's laughing about who knows what. Like, they're talking with their friend, but immediately you're like, oh, they're probably laughing at me. Oh, they think I'm so weak. And like, I'd go do another lift, and it's like I felt this need to prove myself, and like, oh, everyone, you end up leaving there thinking, wow, everyone there was so judgmental. And the ironic thing is, as I felt more confident over time, you get the competence leads to confidence. Um, you're The funny thing is, I was the judgmental one. It's like the people that are judgmental in those types of situations are usually not the competent. Like that like, if you're it happens with my wife, tells me about this all the time, like with women. They'll walk in and see like a really attractive girl uh jogging or whatever. And they're like, oh my gosh, she's looking at me and she thinks I'm so overweight or whatever.
Mm.
She's probably actually not really paying attention. You're the one thinking about her. It's the judgment is usually in reverse, where the competent people are thinking about what they're doing, and the insecure people are thinking about the other people.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I think we hit on, one, two, three different things that make the gym really hard for people who aren't confident there yet. You know,
Hmm.
um, I think that's absolutely true. I've been in that situation before. So um, I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis after my second summer selling, a little bit after that. And it's an autoimmune disease and ulcers in my colon and my tract and things. And it's really painful, stuff like that. And I battled that for a while, but it was kind of fine for a long time. Occasionally it hurt, but it'd be okay. Then, for whatever reason, a little over 2 years ago, things just took off and I got destroyed, totally destroyed. Where 2 winters ago, around January, mid-January, I had a flare-up. That's what they're referred to as, and I went into the doctor, and it wasn't. This one wasn't going away. Usually they go away. This one was not, and they did a bunch of tests, and they found out that I did not have ulcerative colitis. I actually had severe Crohn's disease, and it's lifelong. There's no cure, and there's a lot of unknowns about it. And it was way more serious than I originally thought the condition was for me. And I had diarrhea. Sorry, TMI, I know, but I had diarrhea for about 4 months straight.
Oh,
When we talk about food poisoning or you get a random bug and it happens for 2 or 3 days, it's terrible. Imagine literally 9, 10 times a day for 4 months, day, middle of the day, night, in the middle of the night. It'd wake me up all night long to go to the bathroom. And it was painful. My whole stomach felt like just knives were just being stabbed in there. And I couldn't talk. I couldn't think when it would happen. The pain would just like come and flow all day. And because of that, I have about 300 ulcers in my colon at all times, and they're either essentially kind of dormant or they're activated and inflamed. And when that's happening, I can't digest food, I can't get nutrients, and so that's why people with Crohn's disease, their autoimmune disease is on overdrive, where it's just going off the rails to the point that it's like you don't even have one. It's kind of a weird thing. But I lost. I was at 192 pounds, which was I was heavy, and that's the heaviest I've ever been. And I got all the way down to 131 pounds. So I lost over 60 pounds, and I had no control over it. I had no appetite, no energy. It was terrible. It was a very dark time. I couldn't get out of bed. Wasn't texting or calling anyone back. I didn't have the energy for it. My beautiful wife, Danny, would sometimes spoon feed me, basically walk me to the bathroom, me holding onto her arm. She'd help me down the stairs. Like it was terrible, right? And so eventually I started through medicine and things to get, healthier. And it got to the point where that summer I had to go out and be a presence for a sales team for pest control out in Orange County, California. And I go out there, and I was still rail thin and very little energy. And I had to, and I was feeling very just kind of down, didn't have a lot of, I was taking a lot of L's, right, for a long time. And I had no dubs, right? I needed some wins. And I remember thinking, okay, I need to reverse where my mind is at, because the trajectory is only worse. So I know I need to get better health. Instead of waiting for me to just like have that happen, I'm going to go to the gym. And I have no idea what to expect, but I'm going to do it. And I go to the gym, and I'm sorry if you heard this story before, and I'm just like taking forever, but I go to the gym with my wife, and we're on the bench press. And I think, oh, you know what? I'm just going to do the bar, like get real warmed up. Like I don't know where I'm at. I'll probably only be able to do like a 25 or something real, real, real bad, right? Is what I'm thinking. But I'll just get up, warm up with the bar. I go and I do the bar, 45-pound bar, one time, go down and I can't get it up. I cannot get the bar up one time. And my wife had to help it back onto the rack. And I sat up and I cried because it hit me like a ton of bricks. I knew that I had horrible health. Trust me, I knew it. But that was one of the most humbling moments of that whole process, was realizing how far I had truly gone. And so I gathered my mind back together, and I said, that's okay. My edge is way over here right now, and that's fine. I just need to stick to it because I have to, or I'm not going to survive. Honestly, that's kind of where I was at in a mental place. I had to do something, or depression was going to set in. I don't know. And so every day I would go to the gym. And what I would do on the day, people would say it was pathetic, right? People would look at it and say, that is not worth your time and energy to get up, put the clothes on, and go over there. But I'd go over there and I'd walk for a minute on the treadmill, then go back. I'd go over there and I would pick up the lightest dumbbells of 5 pounds, do maybe 2 of these, put them down, peace out. And I would do these kinds of things over and over and over again every day. And people give me all the time. I mean, imagine how insane that would look, right? If you're in the gym and you're like, I don't know, doing whatever, you're on the elliptical and you see a guy come in, take the 5 pounds, go, oh yeah, that did it. And then they walk out. You're going to be like, dude, what? And so I had a lot of those thoughts. I had a lot of those thoughts of like, everyone in here is judging me. And it's weird because you only think about, well, like for me, being insecure in the gym, I feel like your mind automatically goes to, oh, you're probably overweight or something like that. Not the other side of it where you're so skinny and not strong at all that like you stand out in that way. And it was really crazy to feel, I have felt both of those, right? Or I've been very overweight and then like so underweight. And the amount of insecurity is the same. And so I'm there and I'm like, oh man, like I feel stupid, but here I go. I put it down, like look around, I'm like, and I walk out. And but eventually, after doing that day in and day out, I got a little stronger, just a little bit more. And then I started saying, okay, where is my edge? Am I really okay? Whatever my edge is today, let's just do that. Let's just focus on that. And it got to the point where from the beginning of the summer, like around May 1st, to about halfway through August, I PR'd on bench in my whole life. Even when I was at the peak of my wrestling shape in high school, I never benched 255 pounds. And in about 4.5 months, I did that. And I was in a completely different physical place, right? And so I was very intense with my workouts in August. By the end of it, I mean, I'd be there for an hour and a half, burning tons of calories, putting up a lot of weight, like no wasted time getting after it. And you compare it to my 10 seconds on a treadmill at the end of April, beginning of May. And, you would never think that those would be the same people, but consistency will always eventually lead to intensity. It will. It has no choice but to lead you to intensity, right? And that's because you're acting yourself into a new way of thinking. And so your body aligns and says, okay, we're capable of more, and let's go for that. Anyway, so that's kind of my story. And I spoke at Door to Door Con last year. I basically said all of that. And then as I was speaking at Door to Door Con about this huge transformation I have it on my Instagram, a picture of like, here's me overweight, here's me really skinny, and here's me when I was in shape, when I benched that. And during my speech at Door to Door Con, I felt a flare up mid-speech, and I hadn't had one in like months, and it shocked me to my core. And I held it together, did my speech, but I got off and went straight to the bathroom. And hell on earth then took place the next 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, last time it took 4 months to lose that weight, the 60 pounds. In 3 weeks, I was at around 165. I got down 127 pounds.
127?
127 pounds in 3 weeks. And this is the second build off of this whole concept. Was this time it was so much faster, so much more painful, that I actually at one point thought I was going to die. And my baby was due when I go to the hospital because I can't even walk, talk, nothing. I get helped out to the car. They take me to the hospital. They put me in a wheelchair, take me up. And that's how no energy I had. I could barely lift my head up, kind of a thing. And so I go in the hospital. I was there about a full week. And during the hospital, got double oxycodone. They had people in there like bugging me all day long with different tests and beeps and wires, and it was not getting better. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like I literally just spoke at a convention about like being mentally strong and like taking a transformation and consistency over intensity. And I was like, I just lost like 8 months of rigorous super intense um, weightlifting and cardio and everything. And it was gone in 3 weeks, 8 months, 3 weeks. And I was like, that is incredibly unfair. And so there was a night that I was feeling extra victimized in the situation and just trying to understand like the challenge before me. And it was like 3 a.m. My pain was shooting through the oxycodone, and I was just silently crying. And I was there alone, and there's like beeps going off and everything around me, and it was just dark. And there was a smoke detector up on the ceiling, and it had a green light. And for whatever reason, looking and just only focusing on that green light distracted me from the pain. And so I'm looking at this, and I thought to myself, like, it just like suddenly a burst of clarity. You know, when you have that once in a while, it's a very special experience, just burst of clarity. And I realized that consistency over intensity, yes, absolutely, will always get me through. But I cannot, um, I cannot be attached to results. Don't be attached to results. Meaning, like, I started to really like the way my body looked. I had really started to like the way my body felt. I felt strong at that time. I felt sturdy. I felt solid. And that's all like not that bad. That can be really great. But what I had got caught up in was the numbers of it. I was like, man, I'm benching this. I got really focused at that time on how much am I squatting, how much am I benching, how fast am I running, and I was so determined to just be better all the time at all those things, right? And guess what? It was taken away from me without warning. It was gone. And so in that moment, I'm like, man, I can't. And it was what was pushing me was like trying to get better and stronger in PR. Like that pushed me a lot. I'm like, okay, if I cannot control when a flare up happens, right? And I'm brought down to zero all over again, and this goes on the rest of my life, I cannot be caught up in results because I'm going to be just destroyed emotionally every single time. So, what's the higher principle? Oh, and for the first time in my life, I mean, you hear people talk about it, you see it on paper, you see it in videos, but I finally like subscribed myself officially in this moment to this idea of you need to live this way because your family deserves it, because it's the higher way to live. You need to do it because it's the right thing to do outright. So, it's like, oh, it's not what I do, it's a lifestyle. There's all those little, you kind of roll your eyes like, yeah, lifestyle. Like I would always. I'm like, give me a break. But in that moment, I finally was brought low enough and stripped away of everything that it's like, no, like you really need this to be your lifestyle. It needs to be at the core of who you are. You work out, you try and, have good cardio, take good care of your body, and you try and eat well, right? Because one, you're gonna die if you don't. Crohn's, bad deal, buddy. Sorry. Like there's no cure and we barely know anything about it. So you'll die if you don't do this. So my hand's forced, but I really emotionally got on board finally. I was like, okay, it needs to be who I am. It needs to be like part of my being. And who wins? Everyone wins. The people around me, my social circle win, my family win, my children and my children's children win. And so I'm finally there, but it took a long path, and not once, but getting laid low again at the exact same time 1 year later, and I never thought that would happen, right? So, anyways, those are some of the messages that I have, and I hope that it's a message that people who are discouraged to get their life in order and whatever, we've talked a lot about working out, but not to be so narrow. Like there's so many ways that this applies to you. And if you are struggling and you don't have the motivation, and you get discouraged and you don't have the support group that you feel like you need, like reach out to me. I would love to just talk. I'd love to communicate and connect and share my story with you and hear about your struggle. It's the vulnerability, it's being authentic that actually empowers people. Not showing, when people don't show weakness and they don't talk about their struggles and things like that, like no one benefits from that. All that's created is now there's this unachievable perfect person that no one can relate with and get on board with, that everyone's just going to be like, crap, I'm not this person, that sucks. So don't be that way. Just try and collaborate anyways, I'm going off into the weeds again. But if you struggle with anything and consistency, getting over an addiction, like whatever it is, hit me up. I'd love to connect.
I love that story. I had not heard that. I knew you had Chrons because I've seen it on your Instagram, and I knew that you had lost the weight and come back, but I didn't know that you lost it again. How long ago was the second time?
It was February. Oh yeah. So when I got out of the hospital, my son was born a week later,
Oh,
and
oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah. So when I say my wife is a saint, there aren't words. There aren't words, man. Like, it's humbling to have someone actually care for you as a caretaker does. And you to revert back to a child in a lot of ways. And the way that she waited on me, the patience that she showed, it was good for both of us. We were actually very, very close. We benefited a lot from it. But for her to have our 2-year-old, then be pregnant hardcore this whole time, and then give birth a week later, and now and I'm recovering. She has 3 kids, you know, not 2, 3 with me. And anyways, she means everything to me, and I couldn't have gone through it without her.
I cannot imagine that. That is so crazy. Isn't it so weird? Like, who would have thought when you met this? I don't know how you guys met, but however you met, I'm sure it wasn't like the, the skies are opening. Mostly it's something normal. And you're like, if you think back on that moment, I have moments like this with my wife all the time. And I'm like, if I met when we were kids is when we met. I was like 12 and 14 and nothing happened. We didn't even talk. We were just like at the same thing.
Mm.
I think back on that and I'm like, if I had any idea that that person would mean what they mean to me now, would see me in the weird and awkward and dark and self-loathing or self-aggrandizement ways that she sees me now, like it's so strange. Before you're married, you have no idea how much someone can mean to you. Like it's almost like they are you. It's like your right arm. Like I literally can't live without a right arm. Like that's a very touching story, man.
It's funny you say that. I think about that all the time, and I say it to her all the time. Like I picture. So we met at Fear Factory up in Salt Lake.
Oh,
So
nice.
Nightmare on 13th. And I had a buddy who was going on a date with someone, and he wanted like a wingman, and his date wanted a wing woman. And so we were both like blind dates. We came on to make it a double date. And I met her, yeah, and we had a good time that night. But and she did too. We connected, sure, but it wasn't like you said, yeah, the clouds part or whatever. But I have thought back to that night. If suddenly like a portal opened, right, and someone from the future walks over to me and just hands me like an iPad and says, "Hit play." And I hit play, and it's like a snapshot of her whole life. Like here's us getting married. Here's us with our kids. Here's her waiting on me, at home and spoon feeding me or whatever. Like boom, boom, boom. Like, what would I think in that moment? Then look up at her, and I've only known her for like an hour, and I'm just like, that's what this is gonna be? Are you kidding me? Like, yeah, like I think about that all the time.
Me too. It's funny that we're talking about this because I literally said this to my wife yesterday. And I can't remember what it was. There wasn't anything. Like it wasn't like anything dramatic. I was like sitting there look, we have an 8-month-old baby and my wife, and I was like sitting there looking at her or something. Like one of those just kind of like self-reflective moments. And I remember thinking, like, if like 14-year-old me, which is how old I was when I met her, could just have like a snapshot, like no context, just like see through my eyes for 1 second. Oh, we went to the lake. That's what it was. We went to the lake, and I was just like standing there. It was a nice breeze. I guess maybe that's what caused the thoughts. But I was like, what would I think? Like there's this baby and there's this woman and it's sunny and like I would be like, sweet, this is what my life is going to be. But it would be so far beyond what I could have seen with that 12-year-old girl however long ago. It's like kind of blows your mind. Even, I mean, even like 5 years ago. Like, how long have you been married?
Wow, it's been a while now, 8 years.
8 years. So you're old, in
Yeah.
other words.
I'm 30, yeah. Big 3-0.
All downhill from here, man. I'm sorry to hear that. If I would have known, I would have gotten someone else for the podcast. I didn't know you were past your prime.
Whatever, dude. We got Brady out there. We got Brady. We got LeBron. We got people showing that's not the truth. Honestly, though, I think about that because people tell you, like, generally based on, genetics or whatever age, like, you actually, like, your prime is later than you think it is,
Is
you
it?
know? Yeah, like it's like early 30s to like your mid 30s, depending, is like your prime physical shape anyway, or like capacity, I should say.
Right. Well, like if you're talking like shuffleboard or like bingo, like that, my prime is I got a lot to look forward to. We're talking 50,
Oh
60
yeah,
years old.
absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that as well. Rook, just all day, every day. I'm going to be an expert, but not yet. It's just not time. Yeah, that's really funny. You've like had those thoughts about the future and things because I think about that all the time, and I tell her, and she's like, "Yeah, that's crazy," but I just feel like no one's like got it the way that I've like gotten it before. But I can tell you understand.
It's weird. I had that on my mission too. I remember one time I was walking around and I was like, oh my goodness, if I could see a flash of my life right now, like when I was 15, I would have no idea. Like I never would have thought I'd be looking at this like Portuguese sign to a restaurant. Like it was so trippy to me. And
Yeah.
now it makes you think, like if I think there's a TV show about this actually. If you could see 5 years from now for like a split second,
Uh huh.
like here's the question. Here's a good question. Would it be better if it was like way different? If something is like something crazy, would it be better to be like, oh my gosh, I'm in Nigeria or like something cool and you're like, wow, my life is going to be interesting in 5 years? Or would it be better if things were the same? Like, would that be depressing if you got a snapshot 5 years from now and you're like, oh, it's just like me at home, like doing nothing?
That's a very interesting question. I don't think I would hesitate though, and I would say I would rather it be drastically different than drastically the same. I just feel like growth demands that.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually you expand into new horizons and you take new opportunities and you make new friends and you try new things. And so, if my trajectory of doing that were to continue, I'd hope that it would be more drastically different, whatever that snapshot would be, than drastically the same.
There's a mindset that a lot of people have, and there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't have it, which is like, I'm working towards peace and peace will be achieved and then I can just stay there. Um, like it's a destination, like I'm gonna work hard so that I can have financial peace or I'm gonna, whatever it is. Um,
Oh, I see. Okay.
like I'll find peace in my life in some form if I sacrifice today, but I will arrive is the mindset. And what I found and what basically every like self-help guru or YouTube video will tell you, um, is that like no matter what it is, where you arrive, if that if you knew that your success level, your happiness level, or your atmosphere, or whatever, was never going to change ever, like you were never going to improve, I don't think there's a level of peace that is sufficient that you would never work to make it better. Does that make sense? So like the idea of being a little bit better in the future always makes the present, like gives you hope and excitement, like you said, progress.
Mm.
Um, I don't think, at least on Earth, that there's you. I don't think you can reach. I don't think you can be so happy, so successful, so at peace that you wouldn't want to still progress. Um, yeah, I don't know. You can't arrive.
The pursuit, no, the pursuit of happiness is the source of happiness. So you always have to be in pursuit. You always have to be trying, you know, always have to be trying to progress and be a better you and find whatever the next thing is in that sense of your development. Like the pursuit of happiness is the source of happiness. It's the juice in the journey. You know, it's that struggle. It's that, yeah, absolutely, development, right? Um, it's no arrival. And you said it's fine that some people have it. I don't. I don't think it's fine that people have it. I think it, in my mind, it's very black and white. Why would you ever timestamp your happiness in any way, shape, or form? We all do it. I do it. You do it. There's micro ways that we do it. There's big ways that we do it. But as far as like an ideology, like why would you be on board with that? Time stamping, okay, because well, I mean, the happiness advantage, to go back to that book, Sean Aker, check it out if you haven't, is
I haven't
he
read it.
he talks about it's incredible, man. It is incredible. It's all based on studies too. It's not just like concepts and principles, which is great, but he's like always backing everything up with like 3 studies. So, but he taught at Harvard, right? And he found a study showed that Harvard students were like 3 times more likely to be depressed than a student at any other university.
Hmm.
I was like, why is that? It's like they're at the precipice of opportunity. All they need to do is just see it through, graduate, get that paper. You're going to have doors open to you, right? The network's incredible, all that kind of stuff. But they were way, way more depressed than anyone at, BYU typically, or down at Arizona State or whatever. And basically what he found is these people have been in a pattern of seeking an arrival, and the goalpost keeps moving. So during elementary school, well, let's say like during high school, you're going to be like the parents and whoever, the pressure is going to say you need to get a 4.0. Heck, if you can get a 4.5, we need you to do that. We need you to get AP and CP courses done. You need to crush your SATs. Look, work really hard. Just grind through, apply yourself, crush your ACTs, and then you'll get into college. Then you can be happy. Just grind this part out. Okay, so they do that. Now they're at Harvard. It's like, holy crap. Okay, hang on. Just buckle down. Just get through these 4 years. Just get through these 4 years, or get into this program. All you need to do is like go extra hard these next couple of weeks, do whatever, get into this program, and then you can relax, you can be happy, you can cash in on that work. But it just keeps always going back. And so you have these people at Harvard who've lived a life of perpetual time stamping, and so they're depressed at a crazy rate compared to everybody else. And so and they've never been in a more opportunistic environment, but they don't feel it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, that kind of just builds off what you were saying, right? I don't think it's ever conducive to someone to put a time and a place on when they've allowed themselves to feel like they can be happy.
I think about this so often. It's the yin and the yang of pursuit and progress with presence and like connection, right? Because if you're always like, I can't be happy until, I'll be happy when I'm married, when I graduate Harvard, when I can finally start living when that happens. Um, and you're grinding to the point of not living. That's kind of like, in my experience, the happiest I have ever felt is when I am in like exhaustive pursuit of something that I really want in the future, but the pursuit is gratifying today. Because then like you have both, right?
Yeah.
And so I think about it, like how many people there's people on both sides of it. And that's I don't know the answer. Like I tilt all the time, but um like you're exactly right. Like people wake up in their 40s and they're like, now I'm here. Like when was I supposed to get happy? I never learned how to just be happy. I always thought I would have happiness over the next hill. I have no more hills, and
Yeah.
now I'm just here.
There's a huge difference between being content and being complacent. We should always battle and make sure we do a self audit and be in a content place. And I struggle being content straight up, right? And my wife calls me on it all the time,
Same.
right? It's like I need to be more content, but that doesn't mean I don't have goals and aspirations and things driving me. I need to be content with who I am, where I'm at, my life, my day to day, but not complacent, because so that's where you have a foot in both, I think, right? And that's the tricky part to balance. But I think that's ultimately the key, and you see people 2 feet in one or the other. And I actually think it's really cool. Did you see the new Pixar movie Soul?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So when a soul gets lost, they're in that like dark, weird place.
Hmm.
It's because they got it. I mean, it's not totally what they're saying, but I took a lot out of that as people who have their 2 feet too much in one or the other, right? And so they're content, but they are complacent, or they're just like never content, and that's where you can get just washed away.
You're so kind of lost in the pursuit, you forget to be present. Kids help with that, at least mine.
They ground you, that's for dang sure.
How old are your kids? Yes, go ahead. Well, Jake, I don't want to take your whole day. I could talk to you all day, but I really appreciate you jumping on. How can we support you? Uh, Anyone listening to this, what can we do to support you?
Um, that's a very interesting way to ask that. So I don't directly need support. What I would love help with and working alongside people with is this whole consistency over intensity. I mean, I would love it to be empowering to as many people as possible and for it to be a movement. And I know there are so many people that actually do connect with that story and some of those concepts who've reached out to me. And I want to find more people. I want to find more people like that. And I want us to come together as a community to help those people, right? Be authentic, be vulnerable. Let's talk about it. Let's walk through it, and be brave and share your experiences, and the power of the community. I need help there. So it's not directly supporting me. I just want, funnel us all and leverage us all to as many people as possible to help people who need it in that sense. Because I feel like, there's so many ways that people could really benefit from that message and just connecting with it. And I need people to be willing to engage with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I love the message. I love the idea. Uh, if people, is there like some kind of community or forum or something that you have that people could join if they relate to this message or anything like that? Follow you on Instagram.
It's
Maybe
a
that's a
great,
start.
great question. Yeah, I wish I'm not there yet. So I only got Instagram a little over like a year ago, something like that, maybe a year and a half, something like that. And so I'm really behind on how it all works and like how to have a community and like, and so I'm learning all about that. Actually, Ian Went was sitting, I don't know if you know who Ian Went is, but he's big time in the summer sales space. And, he has a movement. He's got like 45,000 followers or whatever. And we were just talking about some stuff. It was the one sitting over here as we were getting going. But anyways, the point is, I'm learning about that. I want to start my own podcast. I have the stuff for it. And what I would say right now is it, we just need to have more and more examples. And so if you're someone who is struggling with anything like this, physical, mental, social, emotional, if it's you or you know somebody, just put them in contact with me, because I think that's the first step. And I'm saying like through Instagram, that's the only real platform I have. Reach out to me, and I would love to help people that way. And the more examples of that we have, and I can post about it and tell people stories, and people can see other people being vulnerable, then I think we'll gain some traction and create something meaningful. Maybe then a podcast happens and we get more serious with it. But I just want to, yeah, reach as many people as I can right now. And I feel like that's the best way for now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to be in Arizona. I don't know what you're doing here, but we should meet up, do lunch or something.
Yeah, that'd be rad, dude. That'd be awesome. I love
Yeah,
that.
let me know. You probably got like recruiting lunches or something like that. But if you have a minute, I'm like 20 minutes away. So, and I work from home. So we'll figure it out.
Nice. Yeah, I'm sure we'd figure it out. Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Hey, thanks for being on, man. I really appreciate it. And I loved hearing your story.
Hey,
Um, it is
for having
equal
me.
parts, relatable to where you can really see yourself in it. The part with the bench press, for some reason, I like really relate to that. And also like, I mean, it's always kind of weird to say these kinds of things to the person that told you this story, but it's like that heroic feeling of like, I relate to it, but then also like, wow, that's a lot of things that I can't do. So I appreciate you sharing that. I know that um, that's vulnerable. Like when you were sharing, I was getting emotional. Like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know the depths to which that story had gone. And I haven't gone through anything like that. And listening to it, I like felt like I was in your shoes. So thanks for sharing it. Thanks for giving your time. Send me some links to your Jake and Jake takes, or what is it, takes with Jake's?
Movie takes with the Jakes. We're going
Movie
all the
takes
way.
with the Jakes.
We're taking over.